Hello, happy Monday, welcome back. Thanks for checking me out. I don't know how interesting this video will be. It only popped in my head this morning as a subject um, because my dreams have just continued to be just off the charts strange and different than dreams that I've been having, well, for the rest of my life, for the rest of my life up till now, um, which were already strange. And the reason it's been 3 nights in a row of dreams where I am in just places that I just do not recognize and time periods that I do not recognize. And it's amusing, but the topic of today is it possible to be too connected? So connected to to nebulous, ethereal, spiritual, magical thinking that you start to drift more towards the unreal than the real. The dream world perhaps representing the unreal and daily physical reality being as real as we as real as it seems. That's a terrible way of saying that. Okay, I mean we think we're real. I mean we're probably real. We can't prove it, but we seem to be real. Day to day life has continuity. You go to bed and you wake up and you're still the same person. I think. If you're still with me after that intro, here's what I mean. So keep in mind the topic is it possible to be too connected? Too connected to spirit, or maybe a better way of phrasing that is to the kind of magical underside, magical aspects of spirit, to where you drift a little too far afield. So let me tell you about the dreams. They're so bizarre. I mean, they're highly amusing because they're so bizarre. And I got a kick out of them too because then I watched a video by Cindy. There's a couple different Cindys. I watched a YouTube video by Cindy at Awakening or Awaken or Awakening to Spirit. She has the long straight gray hair and she's very bubbly. I get a kick out of her because she's kind of random like me. And I watched her video about Pisces, and so it made me reflect on what I was picking up in the dreams. So I'll tie that all together for you in just a second. Okay, so first dream 3 nights ago, I'm in Japan. I'm in Japan, modern day, I think. And there's no context for this whatsoever. I've never been to Japan. I don't speak Japanese. I don't know anyone Japanese. Um, I don't think that I'll ever end up in Japan. I mean, I'm sure it's an interesting country. It is culturally got a lot. Um, I think there's a lot that's so different about it that it would be kind of interesting to experience, but I don't know that I'll ever get there. And I was um, I was looking at my phone in the dream, and of course everything's in Japanese, and I'm trying to kind of figure out how I'm going to communicate um, because I don't speak the language. But the part about it that was really kind of odd was I remember specifically looking at my phone and noticing that the internet wasn't working on my phone. Like the data roaming that you have to turn on for phones wasn't on, probably because, when you travel to a different country, you can be subject to their data roaming rates or something. You can get in trouble real quick if you don't, if you aren't careful about how your phone settings, how your phone is set up when you're in a foreign country, and you might grab their internet instead of your, American provider if you live in the States. So I noticed that the data roaming wasn't on. So in the dream, I ended up turning the data roaming on. And then what was funny was the next day, with my actual phone in waking life, somehow, I have no idea how, the data roaming on my personal phone got turned off. So I kept getting an error on my iPhone that I wasn't connected to the internet. And I rebooted it, and it was still like, what is going on? What's wrong with my phone? And then I ended up accidentally, not accidentally, but I ended up digging through the settings finally, and I discovered that the data roaming was off. So I was not connected to the internet. So that's just, that's my usual weird synchronicity, like a dream thing synchronizes with daily life. So that was, funny, strange. Japan, why? No idea. Okay. Then, the next night, 2 nights ago, I had a dream. I was in um like an estate house in a very fancy, wealthy home, and I was part of like the gentry. I was as a young man, uh, this family, and it seemed like it was like the late 1800s or early 1900s, and it was very uncomfortable because I was a member of a family, and it was like maybe even a family dinner, or at least we were sitting at the table, and everyone was just dressed so immaculately that even that immediately caused me discomfort, like the formality of it. And I realized that the family had a lot of money and a lot of power. They were very powerful family, and that people, relations of mine within the family, or perhaps the extended family, were against me. That they did not have my best interests at heart, and that as I was coming up as a young man, their goal was in fact to defeat me, to possibly even destroy me. And I realized that in the dream I was like somewhat of an innocent too. So I knew, I had a intuition in the dream that I was in danger, being a member of this family because of the jealousies within the family. But I also had the feeling that I was going to essentially martyr myself, that I was going to let them make me a victim, if that makes any sense. So the time period, it came out of nowhere. I suppose you could make some analogies to, if you wanted to, to the last presidential administration, and that I bet it was not unlike that kind of a family where they're at each other, and they don't trust each other, and perhaps they will even eventually betray each other or have already, but we just don't know yet. So that may yet be forthcoming. But in as I was having the dream, and when I woke up from the dream, I didn't make that as an immediate connection, like, oh, this is an exact analogy, or this is an exact what's the word I'm looking for? Analogy is good enough. This isn't a stand-in for the last presidential family, but. But it was creepy because they were creepy. And so I wondered, well, where did that time period come from? Why that time period? No idea. So then, last night, yet another time period. And this time I was in the 1950s. And I was consciously aware that it was in the 1950s. Everyone, it was like a night out. It was like a night out at the clubs, and people were very well dressed in the garb of the era, like suits, and the women all had dresses on, and the cars were, the doors, some of the doors. I don't know if the cars of the 50s actually ever had doors that opened opposite each other like this, but it seemed like the car that we got into at one point was like that. And I was with a group of people, and the men and the women were all flirting with each other, and it was very joyful and sociable. But like many of my other recent dreams, I felt so far away. Like it was like being a different person. It felt like I was in a different place entirely. It felt like I was not in the 1950s. I don't want to go that far with it because I can't say. But it was like a version. It was like being in a version. It was like being in a in an alternate 1950s, but it felt so real. And I think that's what's really been the hallmark of my last bunch of dreams. If you've watched any number of my last videos, they've all been like, I feel far away when I wake up, like, wow, that was a journey. I was somewhere else. And I don't have an answer for what that is, what that's about yet. I may or may not seek an answer to that question. Part of me is intrigued simply by the content of the dreams because they're so amusing. They're like little night adventures. And I don't know if it would be satisfying to really nail it down and then end up saying, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely I'm trying, I'm time traveling, like Nostradamus or something was said to have done. I'm traveling around time to whatever, make note of history. I don't know that I'm willing to go that far. And so even before bed last night, which I know I had dreams last night too. Yeah, last night was the 1950s dream, or maybe it was 2 nights ago. Anyway, I may be getting my timeline confused, but there were 3 nights in a row with those three different dreams, and then maybe last night I didn't really dream as much. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Sorry. Um, when I was before bed last night, I was flipping through an Edgar Casey book. I guess he was. I don't know much about him except that my neighbor Rose really likes him, and other people have referenced him as a very powerful psychic. From I think actually, if I'm not mistaken, actually, ironically, he may have been early 1900s. He may have been from the time period that I dreamt about in that second dream. That only occurred to me now, really, honestly. But it really doesn't matter one way or the other. But anyway, I was paging through it, and there was stuff about um, astrology, and I have to be honest. What I was reading, it wasn't really resonating with me. It didn't really speak to me. It seemed to be trying to pick apart parts of aspects of astrology that to me were not really very interesting distinctions. It was almost like when people get into arguments about religious doctrine, and they narrow in on a very specific passage, and they argue very enthusiastically about what might appear to most people to be very minor differences in doctrine or interpretation of doctrine. And just paging through the KC book felt a little bit like that to me. So it didn't grab me. I think I was looking for maybe some insight into where my dreams were taking me, and I just set the book right back down on the table before I went to bed. That doesn't mean that Edgar Casey isn't worth reading, because I don't know enough about him. I just mean that at this point in time, it did not speak to me in the moment. It didn't call to me, and that's I think how we should be. Like, whether it's the psychics that you watch on YouTube, say, or the books that you read, when something doesn't speak to you, just let it go. Just put it back on the shelf, so to speak. Um, because you should honor your own intuition, your own experience of this, of connectivity. But I said I would come back to Cindy at Awakening to Spirits Pisces reading for this month and how it ties in. She said that something to the effect like that Pisces. She said it was a general reading for all Pisces, so they always say when they do those, it may or may not apply to you, but her reading and Marianne's last reading on Pisces um, were bullseyes for me, because Marianne's reading on Pisces started with her vision of a spaceship. She's like, and I had just posted the video about my spaceship Star Trek dream. And then the next day is when I saw Marianne's video. So I'm like, man, I'm currently dialed into something when I'm sleeping. Like it's out there, and I'm dialing in. And then, as I said with Cindy's video, she said that it could be that Pisces is a little bit too connected to the ethereal right now, meaning dreamland and aspects of the unreal. Uh, and that also spoke to me, because these dreams, as interesting as they are, they feel a little bit like distractions too. They're pleasant distractions, but um, I'm trying to I'm trying to navigate a few things in my personal life right now. Like I'm at a kind of crossroads for a few things that I have in mind that I would like to do. I think I would like to do in the future, and I can't make up my mind about them, and I feel stuck, like I'm not getting anywhere further with what I'm going to do next and which direction I'm going to choose. And she said that that was exactly the case for Pisces this month, and that part of it had to do with the way the guides for Pisces were relating to people like myself. So she said that your guides are letting you down a little bit, not on purpose, but that she said specifically for Pisces, she saw these two guides working to try to help me, direct me to the next phase of my life, and they weren't able to get through. And that part of the problem might be that they were stimulating more of the ethereal in me and not enough of the grounded reality, the practical, the day to day. And that could be so. So that's why this video will be titled "Is it possible to be is it possible to be overconnected?" or something like that. Because I think the answer might be yes. Sometimes or on occasion we can drift a little too far in one direction or the other direction when it comes to spirit. And everybody has to do what they're comfortable with. But I think you can possibly drift a little too far into dreamland and not enough into daily reality. I mean, if you really lived in dreamland all the time and decided, that dreamland was more important than daily life, well, at its extreme, you would neglect your body and neglect your health and neglect eating and neglect bathing, and you would eventually, I suppose, you would eventually perish. Um, so there is a warning there, a funny warning too, but a warning there in going too far in one direction, away from the real physical world, this world, and dreamland, and the other side, or whatever, however those are connected. And I remember a different psychic, even that I had a astrological reading, said that I had had previous incarnations in which I was so in my head that I did neglect my body, that I didn't really identify as much with being a human being, and thus neglected the human experience. And that in some ways this incarnation was like a correction, and that it would be a more physical experience than some of my previous incarnations have been. Now, that may or may not be true. It probably is, though, because it feels true. Because in this incarnation, I'm like I'm like all in on both. Like somehow about 20 years ago I started swimming like as for exercise and got really into it, and I still do it to this day. And I love the intense physicality of it, and I love the way my body feels when I'm swimming and in flow, and the oxygenation of my lungs, and just the whole physical experience itself. And then the other side of me is more interested in dreams and creativity and magic, and the other side of the coin, the things that are intellectual and spiritual but don't have much to do with the body. So like I'm feeling this pull from both sides a lot of times in my life, and I tend to flop very hard between these two poles, such that sometimes it's all physical for a while, and sometimes it's all upstairs in my head, creativity, and I get imbalanced. So maybe that's what Cindy's reading was getting to, in her saying that my guides were trying to help me, are trying to help Pisces, but it's not coming out right, and all that's going on is I'm getting drawn deeper into, dreamland and magic land. So according to Cindy, take it or leave it. She said that a third guide is coming in, and this third guide is the boss guide, and the boss guide is more practical and grounded. And boss guide's going to come in and sort some things out so that I can start sorting how I want to proceed with these couple of ideas about my future, since I am sort of at a nearing a crossroads of decision. And of course, indecision can be a decision of in itself. Procrastination, inertia can actually, a lack of motion can actually be the decision when you when you find that you can't make a decision. And there's value in that too. Sometimes we get stuck and you do have to do a step back and kind of wait for the wait for the right sign, wait for the right sign to go, you know. But I have been feeling this past week like very much in a state of inertia, no movement. Like, what am I doing? Am I going to go ahead with these things that I'm thinking about, or am I not? Is there value to them, or am I just kidding myself? Are my goals even realistic? So, if there is another spirit guide that has been assigned to us uh, goofy Pisces, because we're the two fish that try to swim in opposite directions all the time, so we're going multiple directions at once all the time. That's like part of Pisces' problem when Pisces has problems trying to swim in all directions at one time. I could definitely use a third guide who sorts things and makes things more concrete and gives me insight into, like, okay, let's go this way. Let's choose this direction. Let's choose these things, and this is your next step in your life, your evolution. So that's a whole lot. I always talk more than I expect to. I hope it's interesting. I mean, if it's not, I guess you're not here anymore. Ha ha ha. But yeah, so to conclude, I do think you can be overconnected at times. And I do wonder about, there are a small handful of psychics on YouTube that say that they, go to bed super early, go to bed super early, get up super early, and meditate for, hours and hours and hours upon spirit. And that's their choice, and maybe that's correct for them. And maybe that's what I did in a previous life. But I don't think that would be entirely useful to me all the time in this life. I think that the grounding too has value, and that experiencing what it is to be a human being, the physical experience of being a human being is as much a part of being here as the spiritual experience. Eating food, tasting how good food is, having a great glass of beer that you love, and enjoying it, sitting outside in the sun, just feeling the heat of the sun on your skin. So those things can actually be spiritual as well as physical, but they don't all have to be just spiritual. I mean, take sex for example. Sex is a lot of physical sensations there. Certainly nothing wrong with making, excuse me, discoveries about what that is like in a human body. Because I imagine without these human bodies and spirit, I don't know if we're having sex up there. I don't know. If we are, it's not much like here. Uh, and I'm gonna not go further down that rabbit hole today because I'm not prepared. And yeah, besides, the point is the connectivity. So anyway, we're gonna see. We'll see if I keep getting super weirdo dreams, traveling through time, or if maybe in dream time my supposed third spirit guide will be able to communicate something more concrete towards future goals. We will see. Okay, I hope you're well. Yes, a lot of political and social turmoil continues. It tires me out too. I know that it's exhausting. I'm turning away from the news a lot right now. It occurred to me this morning too that all change, historic change, is extremely slow. Extremely slow. Uh, I mean, sometimes things move fast, but a lot of social change is very slow, and it's not satisfactory to us when we think that opportunities are being missed to make it a better world. But it just has to play out the way it has to play out. And like Kim Carey says, we're going to get to, there's a destination in mind. Spirit has a destination in mind for us. We still have free will within that construct. And people who are trying to prevent the better future from occurring may have their little victories here and there, but they can't stop the forward progress. They can't stop the better world from coming because that part is dictated by spirit. And so, in my mind lately, I've been conceiving of reality as a collaboration between us as humans and that's my coffee pot, us as humans and spirit, that we each shape the future and we collaborate together to create that future, but that there are certain things that spirit has dictated from its side that are just gonna happen. It's just a matter of time, and that's how I feel about the political and social situation. So I think that our democracy in the states and in other countries will be preserved. I really feel strongly about it, but there's gonna be more growing pains, and it could actually be not just years but decades before we really see where the better world goes. So if you have to turn away from the news like I sometimes do, just go ahead. Concentrate on the good things, as I also try to do, the things that bring you joy. Okay, and the people too. And many of those people are you, nice people, watching me and providing such lovely feedback. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope this was interesting. If it wasn't, it was free. Okay, take care. Be well. See you soon.